I've alluded to and spoke briefly about this next topic in previous videos, but right here in this video, I want to spend the entire time talking about sexual manipulation. Okay? As with my other videos, I'm trying to highlight principles and concepts that I have found to exist. And I didn't find them all by myself. I found them through experimenting and confirming and developing my own relationship with the Creator. Okay? And, you know, I haven't really talked a whole lot about what happens as you develop and grow your relationship with the Creator, because part of it is I don't want to put expectations on anybody or anything. Part of it is to avoid human validation, okay? Because we get stuck in worrying about what other people think about a thing. We need to use our own discernment, and as we grow in love, we start to recognize the Creator's truth about what is going on here, okay? And so anybody can do this by following this path, okay? This is how our emotions are layered. This is the puzzle, okay? This is one major component of the puzzle, okay? Often we find ourselves in apathy over something. Pfft, whatever, I don't care. Who cares? What? Why? Why bother? It's apathy, it's depression, okay? You can be in depression in one area and not in another area, all right? The apathy is always covering, always covering rage, anger. It's suppressed, it's in there. You don't even want to admit it, it's in there. It's in there. You know why? Part of the reason why you don't want to admit it? Part of the reason why you don't want to admit it is because it takes energy to feel your anger. And when you're in an apathetic state, mustering up a bunch of energy to act like, to pretend like you're going to feel your anger feels like too much to do. Ridiculous. This is where experimentation comes in, okay? This is where you have an opportunity to start building faith. If you're apathetic in an area and you allow yourself to experiment, feeling your rage, maybe then you were like, oh, I had rage in there the whole time. Who knew? You know this is true, okay? Faith is building your ability to know based upon what you have already discovered and the principles that are in existence, okay? So when we start to experiment, we feel God's love, we know God's real. When we experiment with her laws, we know they are real, okay? So as things happen and changes happen in us, we are going to obviously encounter resistance at every single level, on every single thing. But we can have faith that there's going to be an emotional knowing on the other side that you did not know about, and it is going to totally wipe away what you thought you knew about something. Maybe I'll make a video about what happens when you start receiving the Creator's love. But I myself still feel like I'm in the very early stages of something. So, and again, I don't want to, avoid expectations, avoid human validation, all right? But all that being said, this is a big one. This is a big topic. And people don't want to talk about it. It makes people uncomfortable. Why? if it's making us uncomfortable, right? We're not being humble. We're covering our terror. If something makes us uncomfortable. Anxiety is low-level fear, okay? If you have problems talking about sex, body parts, sexual activity, you're in here, okay? It's just another thing, just like every other thing. And God invented sex, and God invented our bodies. Well, maybe not these bodies. God invented the human soul, through which projects itself through these bodies. God invented sex. Yeah. Okay. Now, everyone feels sexual attraction, more or less. I know there's some people out there that claim they do not. I believe they're here. And we'll talk about that in a second. Okay? But more or less, everyone feels what we interpret to be sexual attraction. Okay? Yet, no one can ever tell you what it is or where it came from, right? People just say things like, well, that's just how it is. Do accidents exist? No. Okay, so if accidents don't exist, that means who we are sexually attracted to, there's reasons for it. It can tell us things about ourselves, if we're honest. And we want to experiment, right? To me, this is fun. Playing with this stuff. Now, like, maybe you're married and you're listening to this, and you're like, oh man, this is really confronting shit. It's up to you. You can keep doing your thing. You can ignore these videos. Go about your life. Okay? But if your wife was your soulmate and you did some of this work, your relationship would get stronger and more passionate. What if she doesn't want to do the work? It's all up to you, okay? I'm just presenting information. You can use it however you want. I'm just making suggestions on the best ways that the Creator views to use it, okay? Sexual attraction is sympathetic, soul-based, emotional injuries with spirit-body connections. Okay, so, as we've talked about before, we are a half soul. Each person is a half soul. Our soul extends way beyond our physical body, farther than we can see or understand at this point, okay? It is subtle emotional material. It's a container. It holds beliefs and memories and desires and passions and errors and individuality. The errors hurt our individuality, okay? The errors get stuck, they get lodged into our soul, right? You call them false beliefs about love from the Creator's perspective. That material condenses down into our spirit body, and energy should be flowing all the time, but it's not, because we've got these errors, right? So the errors condense into little vortices in the spirit body. I've been told this. This is not what I've seen. I've been told this by, I feel, a reputable source. Okay? So I believe that one, I don't know that one. Then, what happens is, when we come across a person with a sympathetic soul-based injury, a kind of spiritual cord develops between the two people. And probably many, right? Mostly down here. Your lower chakra is related to survival. And then your second chakra is related to like sexual energy and creativity. Okay? What happens is when people connect with a bunch of injuries down here, they feel what we interpret as sexual attraction. Okay? Now, what's an example of this? What do I mean when I'm talking about sympathetic soul-based injuries? Well, let's say you have, okay, let's say there's a man, and that man believes that women should serve men. Okay? So that would mean that the male feels that men are superior. That would mean that the male believes there are certain specific gender roles that he would like the female in the partnership to fulfill. You know, on and on it goes, right? Maybe like another one is, you know, she is to meet my sexual fantasies and my sexual desires and all my fetishes and kinks, right? Likewise for the man, the same expectations, where the woman, let's say, wants to be taken care of financially. Let's say but she enjoys some of the, you know, like she enjoys doing certain things for her man because then she receives gratification. See, there's this back and forth that happens, right? And it's all emotionally based. It's all about like what we believe about our parents, about our family, about ourselves, our role in society, in this place, our place in it, all this stuff. Everything. What if you're a man that has contempt for a woman that wants to be taken care of by a man? Then maybe you either don't attract anyone at all, or you attract a woman who takes care of you. Okay, so you know, these are just examples, right? It's everything. Like a big one for men is, you know, a lot of men like large-breasted women. So much so that women often nowadays go out and get weird stuff put in their breasts to create the illusion of larger breasts. I mean, wow, when you think about it, right? And like breasts are for like feeding babies. Like, are breasts even sexual? Oh man, okay. So, you can go on and on with this. Humans fight over sexuality. This is a problem. Why? Well, see, we go around judging each other about what we deem to be acceptable. Okay? And then at some point, we either stop making judgments and allow horrible things to happen, or we pick a spot and we say, this is as far as we accept and everything else is bad, or whatever. How about pedophilia? Obviously, there are a lot of pedophiles out there. I mean, I myself grew up in the Catholic Church, many pedophiles in the Catholic Church. I attended Penn State University. Pedophiles there too. Okay? So, like, what do? Do we execute these people? Is that loving behavior? But, like, you can't change your sexual attraction, right? Like, that's impossible. Like, there used to be, I don't know if there still are, these so-called gay conversion therapy camps where, like, freaked out, closed-minded people would send their homosexual sons to be psychologically tortured and abused and manipulated. Why? Because the parents can't feel out their sadness at what they think is having a gay son that's from not loving from the career's perspective. They would learn that they're making judgments. Okay, now, like, but pedophilia is wrong, right? Because it's like huge age gap and disparity, and one's taking advantage of another, and this and that, right? But maybe the physically older person really is like the mental age of the child, or maybe like the child really is like so-called more mature, you know? So you get in this weird territory when you start criticizing sexual behavior. Well, what I'm saying is that from the creator's perspective, every single person has a soulmate, therefore making sexuality like a completely made-up concept. The creator views us that we should be in sexual union with our partners, the other half of ourselves, our mates, if you will. And then everything else is just like, it's our soul-based emotional injuries. Which is kind of interesting to think about, right? So it's like, if we really do have soulmates, and this is really the case, then as you start doing this work, not only will you lose your sexual attraction towards everybody else, but your sexual attraction for your soulmate will intensify. And like, you think about it, like if everybody did that, we wouldn't need to wear clothing. Again, human creation, right? Did God make this t-shirt? No. So do I need it? Probably not. Now, the answer is no. I don't really need it. Society says you need it, right? You're being indecent or whatever. But, you know, really, like, again, if you only have sexual attraction towards your partner, you could walk around, you could look at everybody naked, you wouldn't feel any arousal. Because what's arousal? Arousal is sexual attraction. And again, what's sexual attraction? Sympathetic, soul-based, emotional injuries with spirit-body connections. If you've got no errors in your soul layer, okay, all your spirit bodies flowing perfect. So those vortices aren't there. Now, like, what perpetuates this? Well, society's view of gender roles. So, like, there's aspects of both genders that like their own error. Like, a common one growing up was, so a common thing in the area that I grew up was that women did the majority of the cooking in the household. Okay? And, you know, like, I love cooking. Because I like to eat. So I love flavors and all this kind of stuff, right? Well, I was never invited to help prepare anything in the kitchen. I remember, like, maybe baking some cookies at Christmas time, but that's like, you're following very specific recipes, you know. Cooking's fun because, you know, you're kind of shooting from your hip a little bit, you know. You're adding a little of this, a little of that. You're tasting things. You're doing things. You're playing with textures, you know. You're seeing what works. I really enjoy it. Now, like, I know that my soulmate, feels that it's a woman's role to cook for her man. And she actually has felt threatened at me being able to prepare delicious food for myself. Because then, like, she views that as, like, this is one area less of value that I can provide for her. Because I've been taught that a woman provides value for a man in these areas. And cooking's one of them. And if this man can cook better than I can, then that means I'm less of a woman because of it. And then, like, maybe, you know, I mean, I definitely experienced it in her case that she was, like, angry at me for enjoying cooking. So, like, those are examples of errors all around, right? Like, if I want to cook because I like cooking, I should be able to do it. And it's a gift for me to be able to share my cooking with my mate. And that, like, I would not want her to feel belittled because I'm physically better, supposedly, at one task than she is. I mean, who cares? But maybe some people do keep score. Like, maybe like, you know, well, you know what? I will admit that, like, with a different partner, that I actually ended up building resentment up over time because I then always did the cooking. And every time this person, my former partner, would attempt to cook, it really didn't turn out so great. And so then either, like, I would be, like, holding in suppressed emotion about her shitty cooking, or I would be like, okay, just next time, like, I'm just going to do it. You know? And then actually, like, in that case, you know, as I mentioned in a previous video, like, I don't really enjoy cleaning very much, you know? So, like, I would cook, but then, like, leave all the stuff, and then not ask my partner to clean, but think in my head, she should clean because I made the whole meal. And then get angry at her and not express the anger, right? So then that turns into apathy. So it's like, you know, what used to be, so in this particular situation, like, what was a creative endeavor actually turned into an addiction of me meeting a woman's demand that I please a woman. So then it's like this weird role reversal thing where now, like, I'm always, like, I'm taking care of her. So that can happen too. But the point is that society's view of gender roles is going to have a big impact on this, okay? Now, oftentimes, men will cheat on their spouses. And oftentimes in the company of other men are not bashful about talking about it. And it shows something very interesting, right? Like, men will say things like, well, it's just natural, you know, like, men are designed to be, to procreate, right? To spread our seed, okay? You know, we're just animals, is what people will say, right? And I really, while we're in animalistic bodies, I disagree that it needs to be that way, okay? And a lot of it has to do with understanding, like, what this actually is, okay? Now, I think this is a good place to stop for part one, because I still have a bunch more to say about this topic. So, but we'll keep it to there for now, and we'll continue into a part two. Now, just to sum up, sexual attraction, we're talking about sexual manipulation, okay? But it's important to understand what sexual attraction is, that it's sympathetic, soul-based, emotional injuries with spirit-body connections, okay? So there's an actual electromagnetic pull. that we're feeling. I'm not saying sexual attraction is not real. Of course it's real. It's you could argue it's the force that makes the whole world go round. Okay? I've had older men say that to me in not just those nice of words, but many people believe this. Okay? Now, we fight over sexuality. From the creator's perspective, there is no sexuality. You have a soulmate. Okay? Everything else is just error. Now, society's views of gender roles play into this. Men like being men, women like being women. Okay? So, we'll keep it to there for now. Part 2, some little pictures, okay? Love and peace, friends.